Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of Action and Ambition. I'm your host, Andrew Metal. And today's guest used music to propel his business career. Mick is one of the most prominent DJs in the country. He spun for events and people like Michelle Obama, Jay-Z, brands like Samsung, Yahoo, Vanity Fair, the list goes on and on. He actually uses his influence to build up his career, and he now invests into companies. So he's an angel investor. He most recently invested in a company called Anchor. Check it out. The episode's awesome. He drops tons of knowledge. Peace. So you grew up in Ohio.
Yeah.
And you went to school in Ohio, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is like between, it's like equidistant between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just like, and you know, I'm really glad I'm from there. It's a great, gritty, small town. It like kind of gave me good values, good, you know, hustle. I left there when I was 18. I moved to Cleveland to go to college. Stayed there for 12 years, a long time. And I went to college there, I went to grad school there, and while I was there, this whole DJing thing kind of fell into my lap. And
that was a side gig, right?
Yeah, it was just a hobby in college. It was just a way to like meet girls and just like, make some extra money.
How were you getting paid? Were you selling mixtapes?
Yeah, it was great.
That's cool.
Gigs, like, you know, people paid me to DJ, and then the mixtape thing came out of that. And it was great. It was a great hustle. I mean, I used it to pay for grad school. Like, my grad school was 1,000% paid for by DJing and mixing.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, it's kind of awesome.
And so how did you make that transition then from like, yo, this is a cool side thing, I'm like making some extra cash, actually like full blown, this is what I'm doing. How do you make that like leap? Or did it just naturally evolve?
It wasn't intentional. I finished college in 2000. When I finished college, I just didn't want to go get a job. So I went to grad school, and I was like, I'm just going to DJ for fun, go to school, and just kind of like, you know, prolong my life a little bit, or like, you know, sabbatical my life. Yeah. And then I finished that in 05, and that's the point where I was kind of like, there's something here. There's something here I didn't realize was here. There's like all this intelligence and all this education and all this stuff that I learned and it was in me. But there's also this whole music, creative kind of stuff that was going on. It wasn't there when I was in college because it wasn't as developed. And I was like, maybe in lieu of going into a 9-to-5 world or just joining up corporate America and being like everybody else, maybe I could just take this a little further and see how far it goes. Because it was at the point where it was going well, and I was traveling a little bit, and I had a lot of great relationships. And it was kind of like one of those situations where I didn't want to look back with regret. And I didn't want to be like, how many people are in their dorm rooms or their bedrooms DJing and wishing they could have a gig anywhere? And I was at the point where I was like at a tipping point where I was like the best, or not the best, but I was like the biggest DJ in Cleveland. There were people better than me, but I was smarter than them. Yeah. So like smart wins over talent, which is this interesting thing I've taken with me throughout my whole career, because there's always somebody better than you. Right. But it's like, what are you doing with that to make yourself, like, you know, relevant? Like there's somebody better than everybody. There's a better heart surgeon, there's a better astronaut. For sure. But if nobody knows, it doesn't matter. Unless you just want to be in your room all day doing that. So I was able to I didn't want to look back on my life and say, hey, you made it this far. Damn, what if? Because so many people would have killed just to have made it that far. And so that's what I did. So I kind of just took a couple years and really focused on building my brand, which is drastically different than the brand I have now. I've had a few different rebrands, kind of all getting me back to like the core of who I am. But of course, who we are as people always changes. So you have to kind of continually rebrand yourself and try to keep your compass like facing true north, if you will. But it's just like your north changes. You know, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's just nobody is. And if you are, it's kind of weird, you know? And I don't mean like your morals particularly change, but it's just like your goals, your aspirations, your dreams change, and you have to keep growing with that. So that happened. And then I'm fast forwarding a little bit, when I was almost 30, I moved to New York and said, I had that same kind of moment, like I made it this far again, let me try to take another leap and see if I could move to the biggest stage in the world and try to really make this happen. And it worked. At 30, you go to New York, and what happens? I moved to New York strictly to be a DJ. I moved to New York, like I'm just gonna go try to just become the biggest and the best DJ I could be in the biggest and the best city in the world, and let's see what happens. 4 years into that, I had this epiphany. It's like kind of like I had like a midlife crisis moment at 34, 35, where I was like, holy crap, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I mean, I don't not want to do it, but I don't want to be relying on it.
Right.
And like, how am I going to create a family? How am I going to create sanity within my household? How am I going to provide when I'm 55 or 60? But I started just kind of like figuring out how I approach my personal brand, how I work with other people who either are brands or have brands or work for brands, and then that just led to so much stuff.
I think branding is such a like critical component.
It's the most important thing. It's more important than your talent. I mean, I would argue to some people it's more important than your morals. You know, I try to do both.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like the branding is the most important thing, I feel like.
With DJing, you're able to like pull out sound bites, and you can kind of like associate your name with like big musicians, and it's a way to kind of like, I guess, associate your brand with their brand, which is already developed.
Totally. And that's how I was able to get myself to New York. So for me, it was like I was on the radio in Cleveland, right? And this is why I don't think this would have happened for me had I been born in New York City. When you come to Cleveland, if you're a record label, an artist, or whatever you were, you had to deal with me because I was on the radio every day. I did every hot club. I did all the mixtapes. Like I was just like, if you wanted to make an impression in the northern half of Ohio or even the whole Ohio, you had to like sadly come hang out with me. You know, it got to the point where I would just literally tell these labels, I'm really lazy. I would tell them, if you want me to meet your artist, you got to meet me at House of Blues. I didn't tell them I lived above it. I just said, like, you know, I'm sure the artist will love the food, you know, so we would have all these meet and greets there. And then it got to the point where, all right, if you want me to meet your artist and maybe play the song on the radio, you need to come upstairs to my studio and record a freestyle for me, or record some drops, or host a mixtape or whatever. And, you know, that's something for them. It would take them 15 minutes. But for me, like, all these people were just coming through the market and giving me all this material that nobody else had in my entire region, and sometimes in the country. And for them, they were just like, cool, man, you're nice, you seem like a nice guy, I'll come upstairs and record this stuff for you. And then they would win because I played a song on the radio. And then from that, I was able to really, to your point, create a regional brand based on what I had access to with these artists.
What's so interesting too is, like, when I think about business, like just in general as a whole, I see like so many people have unique content that they create, whether it's Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart doing their video thing to a DJ creating content, and it always comes back to like content creation. No matter who it is, no matter what the business is, there's always that content creation component that is so important. And so like when I was thinking about you, it was like I took off like the DJ side of it, and then I like put on just like the entrepreneur hat. It was like, well, you just were creating this unique content that help you just generate your brand and elevate your brand and bring more awareness to it. And also, obviously, like we talked about, like associating yourself with like these hot new artists. But at the end of the day, it's funny because like it always comes back to content creation.
Right, and it's so funny because it was before, all of these things that people talk about, if you open up any issue of Fast Company or Entrepreneur or Anchor or whatever it is right now, every buzzword that's in these magazines, we've been all doing for hundreds of years. It just didn't have the name. For me, you know, I kind of realized that early on. And I also realized, to your point, and this happened for me about 5 years ago, and I had like kind of like my midlife crisis, but I definitely hope it wasn't my midlife. I want to go past 70. My third life crisis. I changed the whole mental perspective of what it is that I do. And like I said, I moved to New York to strictly DJ, right? And then when I started trying to figure out everything else, I realized, well, one day I kind of was sitting at home and I'm like, damn, I only DJ 2-3 nights a week, a couple hours a night. Why do I have no time for anything, right? And how is that possible? Because I'm only working 8 hours a week, 9 hours a week. And then I started like thinking about my life. Like, I've always managed my own career, done my own publicity, I've done my own brand management, I've done all my own relationship sourcing, relationship maintenance, you know, I've done all these things. Are like things that most people have 2 or 3 people doing for them on a high level, so they could focus on being the talent or the artist. And I've been doing that my whole life without knowing that like that was a thing. And so I'm like, wait, like I'm literally like really good at this. So I started rethinking about how I approach every day. I stopped thinking about my mindset of like, oh, I'm a DJ. I started realizing, well, hey, that's just my product. That's just my app, my website, my shirt, whatever it is. Like that's the stuff I'm selling. And I just also happen to be the guy to show up and do it. But my real job was, what did I do those other 40 to 50 hours a week when I was sitting at the computer, taking meetings, or flying to this, or doing press, or working with brands. Like, and that to me changed my whole perspective. And that set me apart even further, because then I started to be known as somebody who was entrepreneurial in nature, which is truly in fact what I was. And when you start putting it out there that that's what you are, as well as internally realizing that that's what you are, so many things open up for you. And that was like probably the best thing that ever happened in my career, was realizing that that's really what I am. I've been, an entrepreneur since I was in college, and this is again, nobody was saying that.
How do you, because for me, and I know so many other entrepreneurs, like building your personal brand is so hard because you're so close to yourself. So you have to take that third party perspective and like come outside of yourself and like look back at your brand. Like, do you have any tips that you, that worked well for you, or do you have people you talk to or get feedback from?
If you could look at a guy who's like a celebrity in like the tech world, or like the VC world, and like, but they get a lot of press now because they're cool. And you take a guy that's like a celebrity in music, and then you take a guy that's like kind of like a male like model actor, kind of like fashion type dude. Like I'm none of those things, but I'm all of those things. So I was able to pull, like I'm never going to be the best at any of those things, but I could be really, really great at doing all of those things. So I was just like, I could pull a little from here, and I could pull a little from here, and I could pull a little from here, and put it all in the pot, and then find out like how does that formula that I created feel authentic to me, and tweak it so it's still representing who I am at that point, and also who I am now. Like not who I am 5 years ago, and who knows who I'm going to be in 5 years from now. But as long as it's remotely close to who I am right now, it's I feel really good about it.
You're 34, 35. You change your whole brand, and then what happens? Like you start
everything. Everything changed. So many opportunities started coming in the door that would have never came in when I was, because also keep in mind I was previously primarily only known as a hip hop DJ. So, and I still play 95% hip hop at all my gigs, or hip hop influenced things like funk, R&B, soul, but it's like things that fall in that diaspora of that world, which is my heart. But removing the branding of that and allowing me to kind of like start fresh, it was just eye-opening, because I was able to cherry pick the best of everything I had done previous to that, but jettison all the stuff that I did just to pay the bills. And it's like starting a brand new company. It's almost like when you see a startup and they're like, and they don't know too much about it, but they're like, former execs from Google and Facebook and a professor from HBS and all that stuff, and you're just like, you'll read it. You want to know because you have like that stuff. So I was able to be like, if you don't know me, because I didn't want you to Google Mick Boogie and see that I did some party in Chattanooga, Tennessee at a college. Like nobody, that's not going to help me. Though I'm grateful for everything I ever did, whether it was like the cheapest, freest thing to the best thing I ever did, because it got me to that moment. But I wanted to be able to like pick and choose the best of everything that ever happened to me in my life and tell that story in a more concise, way. And it worked.
How did you leverage those opportunities? Did you reach out, or were people reaching out to you?
Grind, man. I don't sleep. My wife will tell you, I don't sleep. Even when I'm sleeping, I'm not sleeping. My kid comes in my office and sits on my lap, and like I got 2 monitors, and we put Elmo up on one, and I got the email going on the other. And it's just like it works, it's a unique way of parenting. But we're both happy, and I'll be happy when he moves on from Elmo. But Elmo's all right. But
there's worse.
There's a lot worse. Trust me, dude. There's a lot worse. I can show you some videos I have to watch every night, but he loves them. But it's a relationship game. It's a treat people well game, and it's a see what comes back to you when you treat people well. And I would much rather be human to people and be completely authentic to my brand to people and see what comes back, versus like lie and cheat and screw people over. And the best things that have ever happened to me have happened through somebody I met that knew somebody else who knew somebody else. And then somebody's like, yeah, you should come do this, or you should come meet this person. And that person is like life-changing, game-changing opportunities. But it's just because you know, I credit my Midwest roots for a lot of this too. Not saying people from other places don't have morals, like they do, but like for me, like that's just that genuineness that I was raised into.
And so how did you transition then into, I guess, like the next evolution, which is the angel investing? How did you get into that, or like when did that come about?
What I started, my peer group changed when I started redefining who I am and think of myself as entrepreneur first, DJ second.
Yeah.
And so my friends went from all DJs and rappers to like guys that are big execs at ad companies, or people who are in VC, or people who are just creative other people that aren't in my world. And that just changed my relationships, and it changed my perspective so much. And these were guys who we were all so similar, but we all just chose different things in life to express our creativity and to express our entrepreneurship. And this is just kind of like what I chose. So from that point on, it was just like, wait, there's a lot of money over here people aren't getting. Like, why can't I go to like all these big companies where I honestly would have been one of those people if DJing didn't work out for me with my educational background and the way my mind works. I would have just went over and worked for one of those companies. So yeah, it's just like, let me try to go over here and try to do this stuff, because no one's touching that. And from that point, you know, that created more relationships and more relationships, to the point that, oh, you should know this person, because we like how your mind works. And then it was like, oh, you know, I really like what you're doing. How can I help you? Oh, all right, cool. You have a chance of maybe I really like you. Let me help you. But let me not just help you by writing a check, but let me help you by offering my relationships and my expertise.
Right.
And I built, you know, again, this went back to the mindset or skill set. Like, there we go again. But that, like, I was able to create a really successful business based off of just like how I interpret branding and marketing and all that. So, you know what, maybe you've built the best app for this or the best widget for that, but maybe you're not good at that. Well, listen to me. You know, you don't have to listen to me, but like if I'm write you a check, you have to, if I write you a check, you gotta at least listen to me. You might not do it, but you have to answer the call, right? And I was like, I like that. I mean, nobody else listens to me in my life, so these people I have to. Like, it's like in the deal. So it was great. And then what I found was I can actually add a lot of value to people. I can just, whether it's with insight or relationships or creativity and I got addicted to it.
Yeah.
And it's a great, you know, it's a great thing. And it's just like, and then from that point on, it's like, you know, I stay doing a lot of that, to the point that I'll probably in 5 years hopefully have my own fund.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Nice. You know, to your amazing audience.
Yeah.
Let's get those checks in. I think that's like a very, you know, realistic thing for me in 5 years to do. Like, it's going to be named after my son. Like, his name's Miles. It's going to be Milestone Ventures. Like, it's like I have it all. Yeah. It's already manifesting. You know, it's all up on a board in my house. Like, you know, it's great.
What was your first investment?
It's a great story, actually. So it was this photo app that was based in Portland, and it was a diary app.
Okay.
It sucked. Like, I didn't know too much at the time, but the kid was great who started it, and I'm like, I really believed in him, and I'm a huge. For me, it's always people first.
Right.
And every astute angel investor or VC guy will tell you that. Like, it's people over ideas, and if not, you know, I mean, you could win the other way around, but ideas are going to come and go, but the people are the ones that are going to, like, you know, steer the ship.
So like when you're actually like assessing a potential investment opportunity, you said it's all about the entrepreneur itself. Do you have like other attributes or investing criteria?
I mean, obviously, like, you can't just be like, you know,
you
can't just be like the nicest person in the world with like a really bad idea.
Right.
You have to have like a decent idea, or preferably a decent pedigree or, you know, history behind you. You have to have some other people who are potentially investing that I respect. You know, things along that lines. You know, I have to just believe in the idea.
Right.
Like, you know, not maybe, you know, I didn't realize the first time that, you know, I guess my idea filter was a little less refined than it is now. So I like to see, obviously, what people are working on. And then also, I'm a big believer in branding, as we talked about earlier. And I just need to know that you get that. Because if you get that, you're 95% ahead of the game.
Right.
If you don't, sometimes there's so many great ideas. It's like, you know, you can trick people into thinking your idea is better than it is if it looks great. Then what that does, that buys you more time to refine your idea and change it and pivot it if you have to. But people are going to believe, you know, a lot more in your brand just based on the aesthetics of it and the impression of it.
You're in New York, and it's obviously a great area for startups and entrepreneurship. And you do you talk to a lot of different people, startup grind, stuff like that.
I mean, I'm familiar with different like organizations, and I don't do as much as I should probably do more.
Okay, I was gonna ask, like, do you consistently go out and do talks X amount of times per month, or is it like?
Not necessarily in the startup space. When I go out and do talks, I do talks more on like personal branding stuff, or like cultivating your creativity, things along that nature.
And those are with
they could be with schools, they could be with brands. I did a conference this year in Mexico for a really amazing ad agency called Mechanism, and they had me come down and speak to them about creativity and process and how to cultivate your life in a creative way, which I've been able to do. And I did that in the morning, but then at night I did a party for them. This was in Mexico, like on the beach. It was amazing, right? And I was just like, I was like, this isn't. It made me realize everything in my life is like exactly where it's supposed to be. Where I could come down, talk to you in the morning about all this stuff, about how my mind works and how I was able to cultivate this life, and then at night I can go show you, right? And that's cool. All these people were coming to the end of the night, like, I absolutely see how you just took all this stuff you were talking about 12 hours ago and just showed it. And people when they would, if they didn't hear that before they heard me, they wouldn't have understood it. And I was like, that's cool. So that's something I'm trying to do more now too. That's
really cool. It's like the experience of,
because who can do both? Like, I don't know a lot of people that can do both. I don't know.
That goes back to my point. It's like, I don't know DJs that are able to even bridge that gap. Like, I don't know of any other DJs that are working with Fortune 500 brands and doing the stuff that you're doing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and I have people call me like literally like, hey, I'll be on conference calls with people that are like way above my pay grade, but people just picking my brain for like thoughts and advice on their campaigns, or what do you think, or the space, and it's like monetizing that is the important part of all that, right? Because everyone wants to know how you think, and it's like, but that's a skill.
Yeah,
it's not free.
Well, actually, that's a good point, because I get that too. Like, I get people calling and asking and talking to different businesses. So how do you just tell them, hey, this is my consulting fee, or this is what I typically charge per hour for those types of conversations?
I mean, I just feel it out, what's the bigger picture? What's the brand? What else are they doing? Like, okay, cool, I'll help you with this, but maybe you could help me with this. Or it could be a strictly financial thing, or it could be like the thing I described where it's like, I'll come in and talk to you guys, but then let's do a party in, or like, it's all situational. Like, what are they doing? Because everybody has something they have to offer.
This has been awesome. Do you have any upcoming projects that you want to talk about, or?
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. I just did 2 new investments that I'm really excited about. One is a company called Barber Surgeons Guild. They're based here, and they're kind of doing a lot of really cool, unique things in the men's grooming space, in the men's hair care space. So I'm really excited for that. I just invested in a company called Winc, W-I-N-C, which is basically like a wine subscription service that really focuses on amazing user-friendly experience, really great design, really great, you look at where everything is with like Casper and Warby Parker and all that. They're essentially doing that for the wine industry, which is, I just drink way too much wine. and I really fell in love with their brand, and it was a great. So they're crushing it right now already. So I'm really excited for that.
I feel like I've heard of that.
And now you'll see it a million times now. I just told you that. I see it all the time.
It's not in my head.
Now I drink way too much wine. Which is great. My wife loves it, so it's nice. What else? I'm working on a really cool concept, a podcast series that I'm going to turn into a book, kind of like bridging. I call it like fast company culture meets complex culture. That's the epicenter of where my life is at, and there's so many great things like how we just talked about today. Like, I could go on about this stuff, and I have so many great people that I know that I just want to have these dialogues with them. So that's going to be great. Hopefully that turns into like a book tour. I'm really lucky, dude. I like going and playing music for people, and I'm grateful people hire me to do it. I love talking to people. I love sharing my story. I love inspiring people. Sounds cheesy.
No,
I do. I just do. It's just like, I love it, and I love that people care enough to want me to do it.
For sure.
So yeah,
awesome.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Peace.